But, so, Anthem. Alright, let's go ahead and review this game. Usually, I would do this while the credits are rolling, but since I can't get the credits to roll right now, we're going to do it on the start screen. First and foremost, the category that we always talk about first is graphics. Now, as you know, graphics tend to not affect the score that I give, the final score that I give for the game all that much, because I don't think the graphics are an integral part to the experience. But graphically, Anthem is an amazingly beautiful game. Graphically, it is fantastic. Everything from the environments to the vistas to the vegetation when you're exploring, to the character models, to the facial animations, to the details on the javelin. Graphically, this game is just fantastic. It looks beautiful. Like, the environment design alone, when you first get out into the wilderness or the jungles or whatever they call it, it is fantastic. The game looks phenomenal. And surprisingly, with as great as what it looks, even my computer, which is not top of the line, handled running the game. We had a few stutters in Fort Tarsis, predominantly when we were going through the market area. But beyond that, when I was out exploring, flying around, blowing crap up and shooting a whole bunch of dudes, I didn't really experience many frame issues. So the optimization for the game is really good, considering how well done the textures are. Some of the wall textures are a little bit stretched in certain spots, and we did experience a few issues with texture pop or texture load-in when we were in Fort Tarsis, but that just seemed to be a hiccup in the graphical settings, not so much on the game itself. And occasionally when you first load into the game, it's a little bit sluggish as you're moving around. But beyond that, I really honestly can't complain too much about this game graphically. I suppose, I don't know if it would be a graphical complaint, but the lack of variety in weapons, the weapons all seem very samey, but that doesn't really seem super, or that doesn't really seem like it should be included in the graphics department, more in like the gameplay department, I think, since it is a looter shooter. But the weapons aren't super visually stimulating. Like, to look at, they're not super pretty. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot that I can say about graphics. This is one of the prettiest games that I've played. The effects all look really good. The animations are really nice. The facial animations are fantastic in some areas. Faye's little arm thing that she does really annoyed me, but that doesn't really mar the experience at all. But no, all told, like I said, I can't really spend too much time on the graphics because I really don't have any complaints. For the graphics, I'd have to give it an 8.5. It is one of the best looking games that I have played in a very, very, very long time. Now on to gameplay. Gameplay is seemingly one of the more divisive areas of this game. There are some people that really enjoyed it, some people that really hated it. I don't really know of too many people that just kind of fell in the middle of, it's okay. For me personally, I really enjoyed the gameplay. I thought that the basic gameplay loop of going out into the wilderness, flying from location to location, shooting stuff along the way, busting open harvestable materials. I really found that to be a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the exploration in the game. I found myself really looking forward to delving into all of the different areas, like all the different caves that I could get into, just to see what all was going on, trying to, just the exploration of the game was really fun for me. The basic combat loop, I can absolutely understand why the basic combat loop turned a lot of people off. In a looter shooter, your shooter elements are sort of secondary. The game really focuses on your skills and your cooldowns and managing that rotation. Now, having played Colossus the entire way through, I can't really talk about how, you know, I think the Storm would be probably the biggest deviation from the normal gameplay. Maybe the Interceptor, since it's mostly melee focused. And I completely lost my train of thought here. Oh, but the core combat loop. The shooter elements are not the primary focus, but your skills are on a short enough cooldown that you're not really just idling, waiting to do something. Very rarely do you find yourself waiting for a skill to come back up, and very well, unless you're using, you know, some more heavy hitting skills or skills that are only applicable in specific scenarios. But for the most part, your skills are always rotating nicely, and when, you know, both of your primary skills are on cooldown, you can, of course, you know, start shooting to just, you know, plink away a couple of, you know, weaker enemies while you're waiting for your skills to come back up. I wish the game would have put a little bit more time into explaining exactly how the combo system worked. I didn't really understand it until I hit about level 10 or 12, and then figuring out really good skills that could apply status ailments that I could use another skill to exploit with took a little bit longer than what it probably should have, because the game didn't give you a solid tutorial. Now, maybe somewhere in the menus or in the codex there was a more in-depth explanation, but since there wasn't an in-your-face tutorial about it, I think it might have eluded quite a few players. Let's see. Since it is a looter shooter, you know, I will need to talk about the looter element of it. Well, I guess let me go back to shooting for a second. The shooting, in my opinion, is on point in this game. I think that the guns are nice and accurate. The shooting feels smooth. It feels clean. The guns definitely lack a punch, but that's more of an audio complaint than it is a gameplay complaint, which I suppose could lead to the guns feeling underwhelming overall, which would be a gameplay issue. But the looter elements of the game, it follows from my very, very, very brief time with Destiny. You guys know I hated Destiny. I was not a fan of it. Played for like 6 hours and never turned the game on again. It seems to follow that same looter style where, you know, you have your color-coded rarities on your loot, and it is a mystery as to what you're going to get until the mission is over. So you could pick up 15 blue items in a mission, and you have no idea what any of them are until the mission is over. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of that style. I prefer more of the Diablo style loot, where I know that I'd got a, you know, say a legendary drop. I know it's a two-handed sword. I just don't know which two-handed sword. That way, I at least have some inkling that the time that I'm spending is going to be beneficial. Not too big of a fan of the just mystery box style of loot. Now, I forget what I was going to say. I suppose the plus side to that is that if you wanted to... Or excuse me. I am just brain farting here. I'm really tired, I'm sorry. But since everything that you're going to be looting is just a complete mystery, it does make you look forward to that reward screen at the end of every mission, where it's like, all right, I picked up 15 items. Is any of them a torrent or a cloudburst or an anvil or a defender or whatever weapon it is that you're looking to upgrade? Now, one element of this game that unfortunately I can't speak to, now for me it's not super important, but I know for a lot of people it is the end game, the post game, the repetitive content that makes games as a service a model. I didn't play any of it, so I can't speak to it. I know that there are 3 strongholds right now currently, one of which is just the last mission of the game on repeat, one of which is really easy, and one of which is extremely difficult. And it's just turning a lot of people off from the game. Not having engaged in any of it, I can't weigh in on that, but for me personally, I've got 33 hours worth of playtime in Anthem. I've done a few hours of free play and just the story and side missions up until this point, and I don't really feel like my opinions on the gameplay would change all that much just based on what endgame content there is. So all told, I would have to give the gameplay an 8. I personally think it's well above average. I think it's a lot of fun. Flying around in a giant mechanized robot is fantastic. Playing as the Colossus, whipping your shield out while you're flying at Mach 2 right into a pack of scars is fantastic. But the game does leave a couple of important elements left out that it doesn't really take the time to explain. And like I said, again, personally, I'm not a huge fan of the mystery box style loot, but I still feel that it's overall well above average. From a sound design perspective, I honestly think this is where the game is the weakest, in my opinion. And that's really hard for me to say, because overall, I think that the voice acting in this game is some of the best I've ever experienced in a video game. When you have 2 characters speaking back and forth to one another, it legitimately sounds like you have 2 characters speaking back and forth, or two people speaking back and forth. It doesn't feel like somebody just delivered a line of dialogue in front of a microphone and somebody else delivered a line of dialogue in front of a microphone and they mashed them together. The voice acting in this game is top tier. The personality that's bestowed onto the characters as a result of that voice acting is just phenomenal. Owen is by far, even though he's a bad guy technically, Owen is by far my favorite character in this game. The voice actor, TJ Ramini, I think is his name. He did such a great job bringing that character to life and making you actually care about the character. It's great, but voice acting alone will not carry a game. And back to guns, like I had mentioned earlier, the guns in this game sound very weak. They do not pack a punch. For a gun that's being carried by a giant mechanized robot, they don't pack a punch. Now, you can easily explain that away in the lore, that they're sort of future-y weapons, so they're not, packed with gunpowder. There's some energy unleashing projectile crap going on. But for a game where shooting is a core gameplay element, that's just inexcusable. That's not something that you can lean on as a crutch. And certain explosives in the game really don't have that much of a wallop to them. Again, it's a giant robot launching a missile. It should sound fantastic. And let's see. The environment sounds really let me down in a lot of instances. When you're exploring the wilderness in a game like this, you want to be able to hear the environment around you. You want to hear the creatures scuttling about. You want to hear all of the different, animals talking to each other and, screeching and making all their noise and everything. And I think that you don't get enough of that in this game. I think that the sound design it's just weak all around. Like I said, the voice acting is top-notch. It's fantastic. But I don't think that it's enough to carry the sound design in this game. I would think that if they would give you a nice, soft, subtle underlying score while you're exploring, just something soft, some ambient soundtrack while you're out exploring, I think that it would do wonders for this game to fill the dead air. But that's just me personally. Like, everything that I'm saying is my opinion. Like, for me, sound is a 6.5. It's one of the weaker points in this game. And I will say that when you combine the weaker sounding guns and some of the weaker sounding abilities, I can definitely see how that would diminish the gameplay for some people, because shooting is a primary focus in the game, and the guns lacking a punching sound would definitely impact that if, that's something that you were keen to. Now, level design, this is another one that I really... Trying to find something to criticize about this particular element was really hard for me, because I think that the level design / environment design in this game is phenomenal. When you're exploring around, some of the vistas that you see, just, going from 300 feet up in the air to plunging into a lake and swimming into an underground cave or whatever, like, I haven't felt such free exploration in a game, I don't think ever, to be completely honest. Now, that's not to say that a game like Skyrim doesn't offer the same level of exploration. It just feels like in this game, there's always something to do around every corner, or there's always something to look at. And in an open world game like Skyrim, you have these huge tracts of environment where there's just nothing. It's just open space, and you don't see that in this game. If you're, you jump off the wall of Fort Tarsis and you start flying low, you're gonna fly under, crashed ship parts and overhangs and undergrowth, and blooms are going to be going on around you, and it's an engrossing feeling. It really is. And very rarely do I actually stop to just take a look at the environment, and I found myself doing that repeatedly in this game, where it was, holy crap, I was just down there, like 500 feet below me, not 5 seconds ago. And, where I'm at now in this canopy type area, is completely different from where I was down there. Now, one of the criticisms that I would say I do have about this game is there's not enough overall variety in the environment. If you were a true no-life, die-hard kind of Anthem player and you've got 80, 100, 120 hours in this game, I can definitely see you getting tired of the same environments over and over and over again. There is a lack of variety. Most of the cave systems feel the same. Most of the... what was that underground area where we found the split 3 dudes? I can't remember what they called that. But I went into a space that felt very similar 3 different times, and there wasn't a whole lot of visual differentiation between the 3. They all felt the same. So I could definitely see that, being something that pulls players away from it. But I do think that there's enough good in this department that it doesn't break the immersion if you're really getting into the game world. But again, my opinion. Level design overall, I gotta give it a 9. Like I said, to me, it is top notch. I absolutely loved it. And I had to struggle to find things I didn't like about it. Well, before I move on, Fort Tarsis. A lot of people really complained about Fort Tarsis, that they found it to be exceedingly boring and they hated going through Fort Tarsis and talking to all of the characters and everything. And this would fall into level design, I suppose. I enjoyed it. The little radio shows, I loved them. I thought they were a great addition to the world building. I thought that, how Fort Tarsis cleaned up throughout the game and how certain elements changed, and when you unlocked certain reputations, you unlocked like statues and paintings, and Yarrow's little subsection, as you advance his quest line, more pictures get added to the wall, and they put up candles, and you started to see families going there and paying their respects to fallen freelancers. And these were all purely environmental. They didn't actually lend anything to the story of the game in any significant way, but it helped made Fort Tarsis seem like it was growing and evolving. But I suppose as a criticism of Fort Tarsis, it's way too quiet. I suppose I should have put this under the sound category. And I'm not reading from a script. This is all coming off the top of my dome. Sorry if it's a little disjointed. Usually I'm not so tired when I do this. But Fort Tarsis, for it being a bustling hub for so many people, Fort Tarsis is entirely too quiet. They really needed more ambient sound in Fort Tarsis, just chattering. Like you're standing next to two people and you don't hear any, like there's no people sounds. There needed to be more people sounds in Fort Tarsis, but that's just me. All right, on to story. As you guys know, if you've seen a review of mine before, story to me is the number one most important element for almost every game in existence. You can have an 8-bit pixel game about the most epic topic or the most epic quest in the world. The graphics don't mar the story, but a crappy story can ruin a 4K resolution game. Let's get the elephant out of the room first. The ending to this story is terrible. It is abysmally bad. Spoiler alert, in case you haven't beaten the story yet and you don't want to know the ending of the game. I'm about to spoil it, so I'm trying to give you some time to mute or click away or something. You get to the monitor in the Heart of Rage. You're the sole focus of your quest this entire time. You have this huge long fight with him where you're beating him down, you're wearing him down. You go through 3 different elemental transformations for him. You get him down to a quarter HP, and boom, Strider comes in, Faye and Halleck smush him, game over, day is saved. No, that's terrible. I think for me, with where I come from as what is it called? An amateur author, I suppose. The story, to me, the ending of the story seems like it falls into one of two situations. Either the writers assumed that you would fall in love with Faye and Halleck over the course of the game, and that they would be a huge factor for your appreciation of the game, or the writers did not know how to handle an ending to a multiplayer game. Because let's be honest, if you kill the monitor, the post-kill cutscene, you want your character to be front and center. You want your character to be the one to deliver the killing blow. And every player is going to want that, and you can't have a pre-made cutscene where that happens that features all 4 characters, assuming that you played in a party of 4. So the only way around that is to make that not the focus, to somehow take that agency away from the player. But in taking that agency away from the player, it just completely just undermines everything that you've experienced up until that point. You don't even land the killing blow. That's terrible. But beyond that, that is my only major criticism for the story. Beyond that, I found the story in this game to be fantastic because it is propped up by the stellar voice acting in this game. I fell in love with Owen's character after maybe 5 times of talking to him, because he had so much personality and the facial expressions were so good that when he got his feelings hurt, I felt bad for him. I really felt bad for this, group of pixels. When Halleck would get mad at me over something, you know, I was genuinely angry with him for overreacting. The side quests, the Matthias triplet side quests, each individual Matthias had their own personality. And as you explore the side quests throughout the game, that really fleshes out the whole overarching narrative for the game, because it creates this supporting cast of characters that's extremely likable. Like, really, the only character that I disliked throughout the entire game was probably Tassin. I really didn't like her, but I think you're not supposed to like her. With as little character development as we got for the Monitor, I even liked the Monitor. I thought the Monitor was a decent villain. I would have liked to explore his backstory a little bit more. As long as they didn't do he was wronged in the past, so he's justified in his evil, because I hate that. Just let him be evil. But no, I think the story for this game, it was solid. If you came into Anthem expecting a Dragon Age Origins or a Mass Effect 1, you're not gonna get it. If you came in expecting a Knights of the Old Republic, you're definitely not getting that. It is a multiplayer live service shooter-looter. It is not a 100-plus hour narratively driven experience. But as a result of the voice acting, the dialogue, and the characters, the story is enjoyable. When you find the Javelin of Dawn, it feels like a huge moment. When you're exploring Arcanist ruins, trying to find all of these little friggin' glowing glyphs for Matthias, you know, you want to see where these supporting narratives go. I truly hope that when they do the DLC for this game, when they do the expansion content for this game, I really hope that they continue with a similar structure where they have a lot of supporting narratives that lend interesting character personalities to the main narrative. It's, like I said, it's not the deepest story, it's not the most well-developed story, but it was a solid, enjoyable story, and there were points throughout the game where I was just honestly engrossed. Even with as much as I disliked Faye because she turned Owen, I didn't want to see her die at the end. Speaking of which, let's talk about, again, spoiler alert, you got 3 seconds, however long, to click away. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Sorry. That Owen betrayal, that hurt. That hurt so bad because they did such a good job with making you like Owen. He was a cheese ball, and he did the two thumbs. This guy, he did that, and it was fantastic. And when he, when he stuns you and steals the javelin of, it's not the Javelin of Dawn, it's the Javelin of Tarsus, whatever it was called. That hurt so bad. And then they give him the slight redemption toward the end where he warns you about what's happening, and you see that he's sort of paid for his crime. But that was a good twist. I honestly didn't see it coming. I didn't. I thought for sure Faye was going to turn on us at the end, and then Owen was going to come in and just like kick her into a pit of lava or whatever and be like, hey, I'm here to save the day. But that didn't happen. But no, overall, story, boom, giving it a 7 because it's not the strongest story. And that ending. Before the ending, I was going to give it an 8. Maybe an 8.5. No, an 8. But that ending, my God, that was awful. All right. Overall, Anthem. The first thing that we'll talk about, of course, you can see all the numbers below me. You can see how I've rated everything. Graphics is not going to tip the scale up or down in any direction because I don't think graphics are imperative to an overall gameplay experience. But overall, I would honestly have to give Anthem what I experienced, not focusing on the endless loop of endgame, I would give Anthem an 8 out of 10. I think it's a really good game. It's well above average in my opinion. It is definitely something that I would recommend for people to play. If you're more of a dollar per hour of entertainment kind of person, it took me 33 hours to play through the campaign with very minimal free play. I think I maybe did 2 hours of free play throughout and just did missions and exploration throughout all of that. So for a $60 price tag, 33 hours, you're looking at less than $2 per hour of entertainment. That to me is easily recommendable. With the, I think they said that the DLC for Anthem is going to be free, maybe, unless I'm mistaken. But no, with the content that's on offer, if you like, you know, running raids or strongholds in this instance over and over again, you could easily get that up to, you know, 50, 60 hours. With the content that's on offer right now, I would highly recommend Anthem. I think that it's a great game. Definitely well worth your purchase, and it never gets old dropping onto a group of enemies with a giant mech and smashing the ground and just smashing enemies into oblivion. It's fantastic. So yeah, if you're catching this on YouTube, feel free to join us over at the live stream. It's twitch.tv/Frohsinn, Frohsinn. And thank you very much for watching the review. Appreciate it, guys.